weeks or something.
Calls meeting to order Tuesday, September 7th. Roll call, please.
Mayor Anderson.
Here.
Troy Boone.
Here.
Troy Doden.
Here.
Will Wolke.
Here.
Art Schott.
Yes.
Teresa Swigan. Here. Mike Peterman.
Here. Agenda was sent out. Are there any modifications to the agenda?
I've got a letter here I just want to add under discussion items from the IBEW.
Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
Second.
Motion by Swagen, seconded to adopt the agenda. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is adopted. Minutes were sent out for August 16th, 2021 meeting. Is there a motion to approve the August 16th, 2021 meeting?
Doden moves to approve the minutes from the August 16th meeting.
Boone second said motion.
Motion by Doden, seconded to approve the August 16th, 2021 minutes. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes approved. Is there a motion to approve the August 30th, 2021 minutes?
I make a motion to approve the August 30th.
Second.
Swagen made a motion to approve the August 30th, 2021 minutes and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes approved. Visitors to be heard.
Milton, you said, when chairman of the county commissioners, I'm just here for some information. I don't know how well you're aware of, or every 10 years the legislative districts get redistricting, and that process has started. I don't know if any of you heard the numbers or anything, but anyway, right now, Union County, all of Union County is in with the southern part of Lincoln County, and there's some talk that they would like to shift part of Union County in with Clay. The numbers are, our district gained 2,400 people in the last 10 years. And in order to be a perfect district, we would have had to gain 2,100. But there's 5% leeway, so actually they could leave our district just the way it is, and it would be okay. We'd be within the 5% limit. And what the commission did is we drafted a resolution to try to urge them to leave it the way it is. There'll be a hearing in Sioux Falls on October 13th in the morning. I believe it's 10 o'clock. And I guess I'd like to see that at least in council, if somebody wanted to attend it, or if you wanted to just do like we did, draft a resolution, that you would like to see the district remain as is. I don't really see any reason to change it. I mean, population is okay the way it is. But I know there's some people that would like to see it changed.
What's the pluses and the minuses if we keep it the same? Or the people that you mentioned that want to change it, what's their incentive to change it? What are they trying to promote or do?
Well, I guess I don't know. I'm thinking they'd like some of the southern part of Union County to go with Clay County. That's all. There is some people that are kind of disgusted because our senator and both representatives are from Canton, you might say, or within a few miles of Canton. But I mean, I don't know. That's just they got elected. I guess somebody else from somewhere else could get elected too. So I can't really see that point. But and I don't know. I'm just giving you some information. I'd like to have your support on it, keeping it the way it is, if you could.
So that was October 13th.
October 15th. I think it's 10 o'clock, but I'm not positive. And there is an evening meeting that same day too. That committee, they're not just working on one district, they're working on several districts in this part of the state. So they'll meet basically all day there.
We can't do it today, but we could put it on the agenda for another day to discuss it.
Right. Yeah, you couldn't take any action today.
Well, I'd kind of be curious to hear what the commission has, or the meeting, they have to say at the meeting as to why they're doing it, I guess. I'd like to know what their reasoning is.
I guess I can't answer the reason why.
So what are they saying the new boundaries they want would be then?
Well, I can't answer that. I know there's some that would like to see it connected with Clay County, and I think some of you remember years ago, Southern Union County was connected to Clay. Tom, I'm sure you got to remember that, with Clay County. And then it got, that's quite a few years ago now.
Probably in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, but I'd like to see it stay the way it is, and the commission, we'd like to see it stay just the way it is.
So were they talking about like lopping off the top of Union and Clay and making that separate one to the Southern Union and Clay, or putting Union and Clay together as whole county?
And I don't know, from what I've heard, or the rumor was, Clay County don't have enough people for a district. Because all the Turner is in with Clay now. I think there might even be a little bit of Minnehaha, isn't it? Anybody know?
Oh, just Turner, but
I believe it is. But anyway, if they took the southern part of Union County, we got a lot of population on North Sioux City and the Dunes, and moved that in with Clay way. And then I don't know where we would go.
You're not talking, they're not gonna change county lines, you're talking districts, so voting wise,
Right.
there's more, we have more people in the district right now, they'd be taking our voters away and moving them into their district if they passed it.
They'd redraw the lines.
Sure.
But I just think, due to the fact that the population is within that 5%, I don't see why it needs to be changed. I mean, it's been this way for, I don't know, probably 30 years. Wouldn't you say, Tom?
pretty close. They've lost a township up north.
Yeah.
It used to be almost all of Lincoln County, but Harrisburg,
Yeah.
some of that area now has been
But
reassigned.
Union County gained some over 2,000 people, so almost all the gain was from Union County. It's not from the Lincoln County part. I think we should just leave it the way it is.
I got another question, kind of what Troy Boone made a comment on, and Teresa made a comment. Okay, just hypothetically, just say if they did okay it, who gets chopped off? Is that part of Canton's people that would get chopped off, or?
No, it'd say exactly that.
I mean, if it was changed,
I can't answer that.
yeah, so we probably need some type of information on what area or who would be changed or what.
We'd have to talk to somebody on the committee to answer that question.
Yeah, because then my question would be, are you trying to chop off the 3 that are running from Canton?
Jim Bolin is on that committee, so he'd be the guy to talk to.
Yeah, I'll call him tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a good guy. I appreciate it.
I don't know if he can answer that either.
No, I'll call him and see what his input is anyways.
Yeah.
They'll probably come out with 2 or 3 different versions of maps and start trying to figure out how to reassign the districts.
So that information's out there, that's something that we can have by our next council meeting.
It's awful slow, I don't know why, but I don't know, I haven't even seen what the population of Beresford did, if it went up or down. Has anybody seen that?
Nothing official, I haven't seen anything.
That's all I've seen is the county. I haven't seen any of the cities. And that's gotta be all done before the end of the year, so they're not gonna have a lot of time to do it.
So the push to change is coming from Southern Union County. The people down at Dunes and North Sioux, they're the ones that want to be in a different district.
I can't,
You don't know?
all I was told, there's some people, not necessarily a certain spot that wants to move. And I can't tell you the exact reason why.
Well, I got a question, is there any way we could bring one of the members from their committee down here to explain to us on the next council meeting or something, or some type of affidavit or something, what?
Well, all we did is, we just drew up the resolution, basically, all we did is we just stated that the Union County Commissioners would like to see the district stay as is.
Yeah, that's your input now. I'd like to see the other input, whoever's on that committee, why they're pushing to change it. I mean, I'd like to maybe try to get somebody in here to tell us, you know, why, so we got the facts from both sides. It would help us a little bit, I think.
I guess I can't answer that.
You don't mind doing that?
Yeah, I'll talk to Jim tonight or tomorrow. I'll see if I can find out and maybe talk to Jerry. You gotta really like more information on everything, get both sides. Appreciate you coming though, and letting us know.
Okay, thanks.
No committee or mayor reports, or department head reports. Moving to old business, consider a second reading and adoption of ordinance 2021-04, ordinance creating zoning regulations for cannabis establishments.
So there's been no changes proposed from what the first reading was last meeting. This is the zoning one, this is not the licensing. And the main change that you made was with respect to the licensing fees. So this does not have any changes to it. It should still be the same as what was in the first reading last week.
So we need a motion.
You would need a motion to adopt.
Shall I make a motion? Second reading adoption of ordinance 2021-04 and ordinance creating zoning regulations for cannabis establishments as Tom Freeberg stated.
Second.
Motion by Schott and seconded to consider the second reading and adoption of ordinance 2021-04. Is there any further discussion?
Can it have the changes in it that we requested?
We made those before your first reading.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Tom and I talked earlier this week. You wanted to just, what community was it we were talking about that did 3 instead of 2?
Hartford.
Hartford.
They had some discussions about, I was just telling Troy it was kind of interesting because they had their discussion was, the planning commission said they didn't want to have any limitation on licenses because they figured the market would take care of it. They didn't want to create a value, so to speak, in the license, like it's happened with liquor licenses over the years in small communities or big communities like Sioux Falls. You cap the number, then all of a sudden you artificially create value for the license holders. That was their discussion. Their zoning committee didn't think that was appropriate. When the council acted on it, they put a cap of 3. I just shared that with Troy as kind of an interesting
Perspective.
a different perspective. But that was what their zoning commission had recommended and why they recommended to their council.
I got a question. Okay, say we did 2. That's what we did, about 2.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, can we modify that at a later date?
You could go more. You couldn't go fewer.
So would that
Didn't
help?
we in the licensing ordinance,
Capped is at 2.
we capped it and said it was non-transferable?
It's not transferable, but I mean, but if there's 2 licenses, someone's got a business, I mean, they can say, well, I won't apply for a new license if you want to buy my business, kind of, you know.
But
As
they
opposed
can't,
to,
but they can't apply,
you can't issue the license if there's a cap.
and they can't apply for a certificate from the state unless there's an available license, correct? To get certified by the state?
I think they can get certified. I don't know that, I guess. Because the licensing is just a local.
Right.
The state is not imposed any
Right.
restrictions.
The state certifies them, and they have to be certified
And
before
before they're eligible for license.
well, they can apply, they have to apply and put the deposit down, or they have to apply for the license before they can register to get certified.
So,
So if there's no license available, they can't get certified. Cause you have to,
Yeah,
you have to
okay.
have an application in for your,
Yeah.
for your license before you can apply for certification. That's the way I understood it.
I think that's the way it's gonna end up working.
So my comeback when Tom called me was, you know, by limiting it and putting the license fee that we did put on there, my concern is always someone opening up a storefront. And I know it's gonna be very heavily regulated and audited and monitored by the state, but, I'm okay with the limit of 2. We can always increase it. We can't go back, but we can always increase it, so.
My question is, okay, if they don't apply, but they come to Jerry, and then they talk to you, and then we put on the agenda to increase it at a later date, I mean, that's still okay, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't wanna be locked down and everything,
No.
like you said, but I mean,
You couldn't go to say we're gonna have 0 or 1. Yeah, you could probably go back to 1 if you only have 1 licensee.
Is there any concern, other communities with one group trying to buy all the licenses?
Not that I've heard, and then through the city attorney's network.
Or could somebody buy the license and then enter into an agreement with somebody else?
They're not transferable, and there's restrictions on who has to be a participant or a shareholder involved in the business.
I mean, could they, well, what is, but could they almost bypass, if they purchased the license and operated, then somebody else enters into an agreement with them?
To operate the business, you mean?
Yeah.
I mean, the licensee has to have a stake in the business.
Yeah.
And we also have at least one of the principals need to be residents of South Dakota. Other restrictions that are in the licensing part. So.
Probably not as big an issue here, but like in Sioux Falls, I mean,
And they're limited to 5.
if you could corner the market on private licenses and then have other partners, and you could almost create value just by possessing the license.
Right. And I don't think you'll see that in small towns, but I could be mistaken. Hartford, there was a gentleman actually at their meeting that has been very open with the fact that he intends to apply for licensure in Hartford when they're available. So apparently he's got franchise rights to some cannabis company that will have the operation map for him on how to do it.
The only concern I have with 2, and it's not a concern for 2, but if somebody purchased both, and now,
You can control that by not giving them both. And there would be no reason to give someone 2 separate licenses.
I mean, unless they wanted to operate 2 storefronts.
But we can just say no to that.
I don't know, but again, I'm not sure what the state, if they could certify them from 2 different locations. Same community.
Does the city have the right to revoke a license at any time?
For cause, I mean, there's cause in the ordinance, reasons for revoking a license. There's a process for that.
I think we need to put it in there somewhere though. If we're not gonna allow the same person to have both of our license, it's gotta be in there somewhere. Because otherwise we're charging the application fee and saying we're only gonna give you back a portion of it if we deny your license.
No, that they only get a portion back if the state doesn't certify them.
So
If
if we
they
really
eligible.
decide to deny them, then we would give them all 100% of their application fee back.
I don't see why not.
I think we would have to, because if it's our decision to say we don't want
Yeah.
to, the same person to own both of them, then we need to give them 100% back.
And I don't like the idea of a monopoly. of
Right.
2.
No, I agree with you there. I just was thinking how we're
Well,
gonna
and-
retain some of that.
Part of your solution to that is change your ordinance and then allow for more licensures.
But we
So
don't,
that we don't have.
if somebody applies for a license, we don't have to grant it.
Well, I mean, what would the grounds for denial be, just because?
Well, if they've already a licensee, I think you could use that and say, not gonna issue another license for the same person.
Are we gonna have discrimination issues?
If they've already got a license.
You gave me the first one, why don't you?
That's what we as a council would do, but we don't know what future councils would do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think your solution is just raise the number of licenses. If that comes about and becomes a problem or a concern, that way you're not restricting or creating a monopoly. You say, well, okay, now we're gonna, you want 2 storefronts, now we'll limit it to 3.
I don't know if the community wants a whole bunch of, again, it's a lot of what ifs, but I don't know if you want to overpopulate, but I also don't know if you want one person potentially or a corporation to come in and purchase all of them. Because they could.
I've not had anyone inquire, I don't know if Jerry or Lane had anyone. But
You have your hand up, Woody? Did you have your hand up?
I'm just thinking,
Oh, sorry.
wouldn't take much money to have both of them.
50,000.
It's a drop in the bucket.
But then you find somebody else who wants to join your partnership, following all rules, and then they inject more money. And now, I think if you open the door to have one person or one group own all of them, I don't know if that's in the best interest.
So what are you asking, that we add something to it?
Something that specifies that you can only have one license. Now granted, they could probably find ways around that too, but.
That would be in the licensing ordinance, which is not what we're talking about right now. We're talking about zoning. So the next one, we could talk about changing that, or adding language in there if you wanted. Not adding language to issuing a permit to more than one permit to the same, per owner, or however.
So would that discussion be better for the zoning or better for the licensing ordinance?
Could be in the licensing. We can certainly add something like that into the licensing, so I think that would be a modification, although we have to then treat this as a first reading because you can't substantially alter an ordinance from first to second reading and then adopt it at your next meeting, the licensing ordinance.
But we have the ultimate say as the city council of who gets these licenses.
Right. But it's like liquor licenses though, I mean, if you've set the criteria, liquor license is qualified individual or suitable person, suitable location. You can't just say no because you don't like the applicant. I mean, you're gonna have some substance behind that.
I don't think saying that, well, because you already have one, we're not gonna give you a second one.
We would need to add that under the issuance of license, because it says the city will issue unless it's 9 unlesses.
The language would have to say something like you would only issue an individual a second permit or a license if there was still an additional license available. So you'd have to change the ordinance to increase the number of licenses allowed before someone could come in and purchase a second license.
Or, I mean, you could change the issuance of a license and to add that, something along the language that the applicant is not already hold a license within the city, had not been issued a license previously by the city. Any owner, principal, officer, board member of the applicant has been issued a license by the city, cannabis license. You could add that. Under 4, I mean, that, again, this is on the licensing ordinance, not the zoning.
Right, so we gotta pass the zone.
Did you have a motion?
Yeah, we have a motion, they're in discussion.
What we're voting on now is only the zone.
Location and quantity.
Gotcha.
So is there any further discussion about 2021-04? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next item, second reading and adoption of ordinance 2021-05, an ordinance creating licensing regulations for cannabis establishments in the city of Beresford, South Dakota.
Bill makes a motion to approve second reading and adoption of ordinance 2021-05. An ordinance creating licensing regulations for cannabis establishments in the city of Beresford, South Dakota.
Second.
Motion Bill and seconded. Is there a discussion?
So does anybody want to add any language in there?
I think our main risk is these first initial two. If we get two separate buyers this time, we can regulate going forward if we even offer more licenses available for them to be able to get one. It's just that risk of these first two initial licenses, if that same person tries to,
Purchase vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like the comment was made, $45,000
Right.
may not be anything to.
It's not like you're trying to put a store at the corner of 41st and Minnesota and at the corner of 41st and Louise. This is Beresford, where you can drive everywhere within a couple of minutes. I really doubt someone's gonna try to buy two licenses. There's no geographical advantage other than not having competition because we're limiting to two licenses.
And keep in mind, they do need to operate. So I mean,
That's right.
they
You
can't buy
buy
the
license
license, they'd have to have two establishments.
You gotta have a storefront and it has to be used where you lose it. That's right in the state law, correct?
It's in here too,
It's in here too.
but they can't just sit. We can add it, I mean, that's clear up to council, if you wanna add that and for further protection, then you just have to vote down the second reading and then treat it as a first reading with that change.
I mean, I think there's been enough discussion about it already that we have questions about it, and I don't think it would be a bad thing to change and put in there. It would eliminate a lot of problems if it does arise.
I would like the council to have the ability, if the language said that the council essentially may choose to limit, to only one, I don't know how you would phrase it, but if you had a group or somebody who is a principal officer, only one license to one person or company or corporation at the council's discretion, because again, there's so many what ifs here, and I'm just concerned about the monopoly issue.
Well, I think if you're gonna do that, you don't wanna leave for that discretion. You need to say yes or no. I mean, I think that causes potential grounds for a problem if it's discretionary.
Or to say just flat out no.
Yeah, if you had in your ordinance, there's language in there about any owner, principal officer, or board member has had their license revoked by the city or a registration certificate revoked by the state. It'd say the same thing that any owner, principal officer, or board member of the applicant has or holds a license issued by the city.
Yeah. I'm in favor of that.
Or has an interest.
Any interest.
Any interest, yeah.
Even if they're on a board but don't have any ownership, just any involvement at all. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
And that's a lawful language, you think?
Sure.
That's the exact wording we want to use.
I'm working on it here.
Teresa can read it.
We're not breaking any state laws by writing that language in there.
I don't think so. Your licensing regulations, they specifically said in state law that the cities or reserve the power to control the licensing at the local level. The state does the certification, the city, similar to liquor. I mean, the state sets the rules, but you issue the licenses, so. In that instance, they told you how many you can issue, however. This one, they're leaving that up to your discretion, so.
What did Hartford go for a initial license?
10.
So why would we treat this different than the liquor license then? We don't restrict how many liquor licenses any individual can own or be of some kind of interest in. So why this? Just because it's something new?
Well,
We're worried about pitfalls or what's the, what's everybody's reservation?
I mean, that's my answer. It's-
We can't.
We're offering two things of value. Where liquor licenses have kind of, they've been around forever. They've exchanged hands.
Well, and with the restaurant license
The
now,
restaurant
that
license.
really lowered the impact of the value of a liquor license.
And the value of this, if, depending on what the future holds, could increase exponentially, depending on what that licensee is allowed to do.
We're kind of a border community.
I
don't know, I don't.
Well, I mean, the other solution is taking the cap off. Or setting the cap. You know, put 5 on there. I don't know if someone's gonna invest 5 different licenses, you know.
But then I go back to, I don't know if we want 5 places. I don't know if that community.
And construction.
I don't think there's enough room.
Call green listeners.
I mean, the market's gonna dictate it in the end. Then they used to have caps on, I mean, for example, Hy-Vee had to get the laws changed, they could have liquor in all of their stores in Sioux Falls, they used to have capped at 3.
But I mean, if we only got one licensee, we could always change it and remove that. But again, if you give it to, because it's so unknown, I'm just concerned if one person potentially, maybe there's an advantage that we're not thinking about, and somebody could exploit it and do something that we're just not thinking about. I think it gives the council more,
There's nothing that we're doing that can't be undone, correct?
except for if somebody gets both, then you can't
You
really,
can't undo that.
can't do that.
You can't undo that.
Here's just a suggested language, if we add it under the issuance of license, it says the city will issue license unless, there's 9 subparagraphs here, this would be a 10th. It'd be, say that any owner, principal officer, or board member of the applicant has any financial interest in any other cannabis establishment licensed by the city.
It sounds good.
We can always remove that, but like he said, we wouldn't be able to interject it if someone had to.
Right.
And then we couldn't change, just like reducing the number of licenses.
Yeah.
Can't go backwards, but we can go forward. All right with that.
So we'll shoot down the second read the wood.
So I would vote down the second reading, yes.
And then we do it.
And then we'd have the first reading with this addition.
I have another point that I have another point that I thought of, if we're gonna change this, might be something to, I don't know if we need to add it or not, but that is, how does the city, or the city council, how are we capable of doing a background investigation on who the applicant is?
State's gonna be doing that as well.
Right, but I mean, do we want the chief, I know he's shaking his head no.
We can't do it. We're not allowed to.
In the application, do they have to list?
The application.
All owners, all principals, all board members, they have to list all those involved parties?
Mhm.
And if they falsify the application, that would be reason for revocation.
Exactly.
Right, but I guess what I'm getting at is, and I realize the state is gonna do theirs too, but they're also gonna be getting,
You're talking separate from this whole subject, just
Right.
the idea of knowing who
Right.
the applicants are.
exactly. Is there,
Same way you do for liquor license.
Check a box.
I mean, can we ask questions of a licensee?
Absolutely.
Can we call them in and say you need to come in? Can we run credit checks on them? Can we do all that?
Credit checks, I mean, the statutes say that they have to be, not been convicted of a violent felony within 10 years.
And I guess that's part of my concern, and I know Woody's sitting right here, and I know Woody checks on everyone who rents from him. If we're getting somebody to open a cannabis store in Beresford, I think that we wouldn't be doing the citizens of Beresford any justice at all by not doing some type of investigation as to who is getting the license. And I realize the state's gonna do something, but we don't know what. And they're gonna be getting 100, well, maybe not hundreds, they're gonna get 100 of these in the first month.
And then I have one other thing to add to that.
I mean, it's just what I thought of after the call last time. And I'm glad Woody's here to remind me that I know he runs credit checks on people that rent from him, you know, and I just don't think that as a city that we shouldn't be doing something. If somebody applies for a license.
So if someone's got bad credit, you're gonna say you can't open a cannabis store.
Not necessarily that, but I mean.
I'm just asking, I mean, I don't know that that's grounds to say.
I mean, that's what I'm asking,
Yeah.
is how.
I mean, they've got to certify to you that they haven't had a violent felony, that's what this, within 10 years, that's what the state requirement is. And that, if we send one up that says, you know, Joe Public has applied for a license and it goes for certification at the state level, they're gonna say he's not eligible to get certified. And they're gonna certify someone with that. There's a state certification on top of the local license.
Right. So hypothetically, if somebody came in and had a felony fraud, and if we went and talked to neighbors or something like that, neighbors would say, this person is not a good neighbor, whatever it is. And then we ran a credit check and it was extremely poor. There's still nothing we could do because it's not a violent felony.
But we hold all the power to issue licenses.
How would we know that? How would we know
Right.
who we're up against? I guess that's what I'm getting at, is can we just merely ask them questions, or can we do a background investigation? And if we can, how do we do it?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. Same way, I mean, it's the same issue you've got for liquor licenses. Your investigation is now, if they ask the chief if there have any problems at this establishment.
Right, but I mean, if Dollar General comes in and says, we want to open a cannabis store, we're gonna go, oh, all right, Dollar General. You know, if an established business person in town already comes in and wants to open one, we're probably gonna know who that is. You know, I doubt those are any of the scenarios that are gonna happen with the cannabis one. That was my question.
Yeah. So you want to put in there a requirement for a background check leading, and the more you open it up to discretion, the more you open yourself up to problems.
I hear what you're saying, but my concern is like, if we put a background check in there, then what criteria are you using to approve or deny?
That's kind of where I'm headed. Is what do we do then?
But then if we deny based on something that somebody disagrees with, what was our rationale?
And your licensing says you will issue a license if they check all these boxes.
If the state certifies them, to me, that's good.
Troy, you gotta be a little bit careful, cause I'm private.
Right.
Public, and public you have to do the criteria.
That's what I'm getting at.
That's what Nathan's getting at. Where I can make my own criteria and say,
We'd have to have a book, basically.
well, it'd be bad.
That would
Right.
outline
I mean,
all
you can't get out of state, but you can find out pretty quickly if someone's got a felony conviction in South Dakota. You go on the UJS website.
I guess that's
I mean, there's a third of
what
what
I wanted everyone to kind of think about too, was if the state says, yeah, we're gonna certify them, we're gonna go, alright, then here's your license, here's 25 grand.
um,
Can we put in that we reserve the right to do an additional background check on top of the state's certification process?
Good question.
I mean, then we don't necessarily have to, but we have the right to if we suspect something.
Well, how does the process work? They come in and they apply for a license, then they apply to the state for certification, or all that information comes to us?
they'll have to apply for
We pass it forward to the
They'll have
state
to apply for certification with the state.
after they apply for a license. Or do you get, because the state certifies the location and everything, right?
They certify the business operation, I guess. Cause they're gonna, they're gonna say that you gotta have certain cameras, all those sorts of things that they have in place, and regulations that still aren't fully adopted.
And you can't come in and apply for a license if you don't have an address on that license for where the establishment's gonna be.
Right.
Because we have to make sure it's within all the zoning, meets all the zoning requirements.
But maybe is there something within
I was gonna
the
pull up the
revocation
cannabis
section? So there's 4-5, 4-0510. You have to meet the things to get a license, but then the city has listed out a series of items that we get to revoke the license. Is there something that would come up, like what you're talking about, that either is listed or should be listed in there?
Well, is that where we're gonna be though, is we can only issue them a license until they kind of prove that something is wrong with the application, and then we can say, okay, now we revoke.
Because here it says if they lie, if they mislead, if they are delinquent in any of their payments to the city, county, state for taxes or fees related to the cannabis equipment establishment, which I would hope would include staying current with their utility bills, right? If an employee, principal officer, owner, licensed holder is convicted of a disqualifying felony offense as defined by the law, which is quoted.
That delinquency you're talking about only pertains to taxes or fees related to the cannabis establishment, not for utility bills.
Could we include utilities in there? Under item number 6, Tom? And be specific.
under 6 or under, we could add including utilities.
City-owned utilities.
I like Troy's idea, but I think it'd be better to, instead of a preemptive cancellation, basically, have language that's strict, where if they do something, we could revoke it a lot easier.
And under that
To
thought,
include falsification or.
under that thought too, Nathan, I mean, if we're gonna, under this restriction of one principal being a part of more than one license, we need to have something in there too where if the principals or ownership change after the license issue, that it cannot include someone that is a principal or owner or has ownership in a separate license. Because if Troy and I wanted to get a license, and Nathan and Art wanted to get a license with Mike, and then after we have our license and they have their license, Mike comes over and buys into ours, but the license is already issued.
It's up for renewal anyway.
So at the annual renewal, if they
They have
have
to certify those same things.
that 5,000, they have to we have to relicense issue, yeah.
So this,
So after a 1-year renewal, then we could go, oh, ownership, because he's
you
a
can make
part of
that,
both.
put that on the renewal applications, if any change of ownership, you have to disclose it, so. So
That's covered then.
Oh, and, I mean, I didn't wanna go deep into the weeds. I mean, I realize if you're talking background, that's where you're gonna end up, but, I mean, I think it would be nice if there's any way that we would have a little more say in it and be able to ask a few more questions than, are you certified by the state? Yep, alright.
actually, it's gonna end up, you license them and then they certify them, because I was just looking at the certification requirements, is if the city, whether the establishment requires a local registration license and permit, a copy of the license. So before they can get their certification from the state, you're gonna issue the permit.
They have to own the license before they can get certified.
So
And if they
then,
don't get certified, then you'll reimburse half the,
so then we would have to do some type of background investigation.
yeah.
Well, if they don't.
What are that, I mean, you're gonna have to establish the criteria then. I mean, I don't think you can establish the criteria that says this smells bad,
Right, no, I completely understand, I get
you
that.
know? That, I mean, I think,
But I think, I guess what I mean, are we responsible for running the criminal history then? Are we responsible for any credit checks? Are we responsible for
I mean, I don't know why credit, I didn't mean a credit check, I don't know.
any other of the, million things you would do in a background?
I mean, I don't know, if you're gonna have to establish what the reason for them and the criteria that you're looking to avoid, other than the felony that's already by statute. I
So
don't,
we
for example,
basically-
you're gonna say that someone's got a third offense DWI, which is a non-violent felony. Are they prohibited from being licensed?
Or not.
How would we even know that without some way to?
Well, I mean, if they're gonna falsify the information, I mean,
But are we gonna be able to see all that stuff in the licensing thing? When they come to the city for the license, are we gonna be able to see all that? Or are we just gonna have to take their word for it that they've checked the box and said, no, they don't have any of this?
but, I mean, you can certainly check that,
Or is that the $12,500 risk that they run?
yeah. I mean, or 22,000, or 20,000 is, or it's your 20,005.
Is the state issuing a standard application for the cities to use? So we need to come up with an application, and on that application, we can ask questions about, have you been convicted of any violent felonies in the last 10 years, blah, blah, blah. All the questions that would risk them not getting certified by the state, we can ask on the application. So if they falsify that application, that's grounds for revocation of their license. That application can be as detailed as we want. We're asking them to provide the information. We almost have to take that information at face value, and then we find out after the fact that they falsified the application, you can revoke the license. And does that need to be on there? That falsification or
It is on there.
I don't know why someone would take a $5,000 risk when the state's probably gonna run equivalent to like a triple I on that person. So that's just, why take a risk of losing $5,000 right away?
Well,
Because-
Woody hit the nail on the head earlier when he said it's gonna be a drop in a bucket for some people.
Yeah, but say if they run a triple I, that's a complete check of their complete criminal record throughout the US.
Right.
So if there's
I
any
mean,
violent felonies in the
I'm
last
just-
10 years.
Yeah, I was just throwing it out because, until, I think Tom reread it just now, I guess we all kind of thought it was reversed. That they would go to the state and then come to us.
That's not how I understood it.
That's the way I understood it.
No,
Start with
the
the city
state-
and then go through the state.
Yeah. Because to get the certification from the state, they gotta hold the license.
What if it's a group that's coming in to apply for it?
And they gotta disclose who's your group.
Then the whole group has to fill out the application?
And the whole group would have to pass background at the state level to get certified.
Okay.
One bad apple in there, they don't get certified, and we deny their application. And we keep part of the license.
The establishment shall conduct a background check into the criminal history of each person seeking to become a principal officer, board member, agent, volunteer, or employee before they can work at the medical cannabis establishment.
Because this even covers employees, not just officers.
Well, I think that's the cannabis establishment can do those types of checks.
They have to. As a
Not
business.
necessarily the.
Again, that's subject to revocation. If they hire someone that doesn't qualify, you can revoke their license.
I suspect it's in their interest to make sure that they're.
Well, if they value their license, I mean,
And at some point in the future, if they pass the recreational, will these establishments be able to sell recreational as well?
yes.
That's where the value.
What's that?
That's where the value comes in.
Right.
So if they hire an employee, they gotta send that employee information up to the state to be added to their certificate.
They're required to do that themselves.
Run
And
their
they're
own-
subject to inspection. I mean, the state can come in any time and say, I want to see your list of employees and the background checks you did on each of them.
I mean, I'm guessing it's similar like a casino, right? Casinos have to certify all of their employees, and if they're caught, it's immediate fines and potential sanctions, right?
And loss of license.
Correct. So they don't usually mess around with that.
Yeah. So that's my only thing I found. Sorry, the 20 minutes.
We're gonna put you back on Zoom.
I was quiet.
I think at some point we have to rely on our state to do that.
What's that?
I think at some point we need to put some reliance on our state background check.
Government people, I don't know about that.
So if I'm hearing, well, you haven't voted on down the first one yet, have you?
Can you read?
Well, I think you're still voting on the way it was presented at the first reading last time,
Right.
a week ago, so
Can I just withdraw my motion?
We're just.
If it's been seconded?
it's been seconded, right? Bart seconded it,
This guy's a vote.
it's voted down. You can encourage
Can you
the
amend
rest of the body to,
Can you amend the motion to change it to a first reading with changes?
just vote the first one now and then have a first reading.
Alright. Just asking.
Keep it simple.
Your perfect record, make one.
I don't have a perfect record of anything.
With no criminal history.
So is there any further discussion on considering the second reading and adoption of ordinance 2021-05? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Unanimous.
So as I understand, the first reading you wanna have then will be,
At the next meeting, it has to be on the agenda. Correct?
Timing wise, there are immediate issues.
yeah, cause that would be considered a substantial amendment.
What's the time frame?
Well, 2 weeks, 20 days.
I mean, when does that have to be passed by?
And they're saying October sometime, regulations. They haven't finalized those yet.
We can amend the sucker a couple more times.
At this point, your moratorium on licenses is still in place.
So if we had to, though, we could call a special meeting.
Yeah, if we had to. And remember the temporary ordinance that we adopted back in March,
It's still in place.
still in
We have
place.
to revoke this ordinance.
This has a repealer in it.
Oh, okay. The licensing one, not the zoning. Okay,
Well, the zoning one, actually, has the repealer.
so there's 20-some days.
So you can draft up another first
The
reading,
first reading, yeah.
and if anybody else has anything that they would like, maybe.
Let me know.
Before that,
See, it'd be nice that at least when you finish your first reading, that you don't have the changes come up before the second reading.
Are you gonna put in that one line, city utility bills?
Yep, I've got those two changes then, that you wanna have in there.
We kinda need both of these to hit the street at the same time, these ordinances, right?
We just adopted the zoning one,
Right.
ideally. I'm just gonna look at the statute on the ordinance, so hang on a second.
So are you guys missing out on, I'm a revenue stream guy, are you missing out on sales tax revenue because you got that cost so much higher in competition with other cities, or does that even matter?
And now it's medical, there's no sales tax in medical. It would only be once it hits recreational, that's the other issue.
Okay, then it won't matter.
I'm sorry, I'm just pulling up the statute here.
But I think, to answer your question, Ray, though, I think we could always change our fees later on if that recreational does get passed. We could amend to increase fees at that time.
Yeah, I was just thinking you've got Beresford with a different dollar amount, the lane's a different dollar amount. And if you're not in competition, it's not that far of a drive to them. And to about no sales tax on that.
So with the changes, you can treat this as a first reading. Or, excuse me, you just don't approve the second reading. At your next meeting, you can approve it as a second reading. Because it's the same ordinance, but with a change. So you gotta have at least 5 days pass before you can adopt the ordinance as amended.
So this will qualify as the first reading.
Well, the first reading is actually last week.
Oh.
You just have, if there's substantial amendments between the first reading and what you propose to adopt, you gotta have 5 days for the consideration of the
Second reading. Okay.
second reading. So you can do the second reading at the next meeting.
Okay. Well, that's good.
So, yeah.
Okay.
They changed that a few years ago, so I wanted to make sure I was not misquoting that for you, so.
So it's not qualified as the first reading of it.
But actually, the first reading would have been last week.
Okay.
You just can't do final passage without letting 5 days go if there's a substantial amendment from the first reading to the second reading.
So next time we're
It'll be
gonna
the
have to
second.
do a second reading.
Yeah.
Clear as mud.
And it's now amended with what you,
Well, then the one you will adopt will have these changes.
Gotcha.
And that'll be up for consideration and final passage at your September 20th meeting. We'll have those 2 changes, correct? If I heard you correctly, the adding of the licensee language, not have an interest in multiple licenses, and then adding city utilities as a factor for revocation if they're delinquent. Okay?
Next item, second reading and adoption of ordinance 2021-06 zoning amendment for the city of Beresford. The motion to approve ordinance 2021-06.
No, this is for Nathan Johnson.
How you feeling now, Woody?
I'm tired.
That's three. Yeah.
Which one? 2021. Shall make a motion for second reading and adoption of ordinance 2021-06 zoning amendment for the city of Beresford South Dakota.
So the multi-thing, yeah.
Is there a second?
Golden second.
Motion by Schott and seconded to approve the second reading and adoption of ordinance 2021-06. This is the zoning on Third and what?
105 Spruce.
Spruce Street. Any discussion? Hearing none, all fair side? Aye. Opposed? Reading approved. Next item, second reading and adoption of ordinance 2021-07, the zoning amendment for the city of Beresford. This would be the campground.
Yeah, just a correction there, the central business is single family period under this ordinance, but it's multifamily residential to general business. So that's,
It's just a
strike
title.
that in the title, yeah. So we will make the change of that before
It's
the mayor
currently
signs it.
multifamily.
Yeah, there's nothing there to talk about.
When they change to general business.
Multifamily residential, R2 to general business, GB. And that will be reflected in the one that's signed.
Is there a motion? Okay. There's no motion, what do we do?
Tables.
Okay, if there's no motion, we will table ordinance
It'll be on the next agenda.
2021-07. New business, 2022 budget review. Consider first reading of fiscal year 2022 appropriation ordinance.
Elaine, you want to put that up on there?
So I believe Austin needed to get going. So if no one objects, can we visit with the telephone and cable portion first?
You think we'll have to just take the lights off above there? Can you guys see it okay, I guess?
I can see it okay.
I'm at a different angle. So the other one goes.
There we go. That's better. We're gonna go to Jim.
We tried something different this year. We've got everything in a spreadsheet format that Elaine put together. It works real good. So we changed one thing, it pretty much changes everything in our whole ordinance. So she's earmarked certain spots on there that she'll highlight and talk about a little further. But we sent it out early so you guys have a chance to take a look at it. So we're probably not going to focus a lot on things that are the same from year to year to year to year to year. Probably going to focus more on the bigger changes, and I'm going to kind of let Elaine walk through, and I'm going to help her if we need something. She spent quite a bit of time putting everything together here, so.
So the budgeted revenue for 2022 is $1,662,000, and the expenditures $1,510,000, which leaves a cash flow of $152,000. Austin didn't have too much on his wish list. Transmission equipment, due to core routers and upgrades and labor. I don't know if you guys had a chance to look at the notes, which I hope were helpful, that you could kind of see.
Getting this the day before the holiday weekend didn't leave a lot of time to look at it.
A lot of the increases were due to mandated.
We're on telephone expenditures if you're looking for that.
Okay, thank you.
Where's the notes?
that brings it less.
Is this under the enterprise fund Excel spreadsheet or
The enterprise fund.
For some reason I remember seeing notes, but where are those at now?
So if you hover over the little red triangle in the top right corner,
Yeah, I'm looking at it on my phone, so we're not seeing the same thing you are.
The notes won't come through on your phone.
Okay.
You could have it on computer Excel.
We're prepared to talk about the notes though, so if you didn't have a way to access them, we created the notes just as a way for us to track everything, but it's also beneficial for you guys if you had access to an iPad or your own personal computer, you could have pulled that up if you had an Excel spreadsheet.
Oh, it's the rear of the room.
I personally feel like just let that stuff for adults on separate.
Austin, anything you to add to?
Yeah, basically the increase on it, like Elaine said, was the core routers. So our core routers, which control our internet, our long distance goes through them. And now everybody's telephone service, because of fiber, goes through them, and they are end of life. So we can't buy maintenance contracts or anything for them anymore. So it's time to upgrade them. And they're about $40,000 with the equipment and the engineering to get them all set up and get everything installed. So. And then there's some, like Elaine also stated, we've been mandated by the government to do FCC speed testing. So we have to speed test our customers to make sure we're providing the speeds that we're supposed to be providing. And then also great robocalls you guys get on your cell phones and wherever else, we've been mandated to try to stop that as well. So it's currently up and running, but it's just a fee that'll be added on every year going forward. So otherwise, not much change on it.
When you made a comment about a fee, fee to the customer or fee?
No, we can't charge for that. Oh, so yeah.
So are we looking at expenses for the switches here? Is that what we're referring to?
Yeah, the increase on the transmission side is for the core routers for the internet.
Around
Telephone
40,000.
service. Yeah, about
It's
40,000.
$50,000 in the budget, Mark.
Okay, that's fine.
All along the right-hand side, the 2022 budget is what you want to look at.
Elaine, just one note, you and I had talked about the health insurance on a different department. I'm wondering if this money needs to be looked at as well. I guess to my calculation, year to date, annualized, we're only at about 71,000. Taking 10% of that for an increase would only get us about 78,000. So it looks like maybe we did a 10% of prior year's budget before we're not using all of that. So if you could just look at the health insurance when you. I just want to make sure that we're a little bit more maybe accurate using 10% of actual versus 10% of budgeted number from last year.
Do you have anyone increasing in that department, going from single to family or anything?
not to my knowledge.
Yeah, not that I know of.
Yeah. Right now, we've got one employee that does not carry the city insurance.
So if I'm reading this correctly, your budgeting was $1,448,327 for expenses, which actually comes in under our actuals going all the way back to 2016. With the exception of 2020, for some reason that was below $1 million, I don't know why. Because these are actuals, not budget, right, on this spreadsheet, except for 2021's budget.
Right.
Now, the bottom line there includes the capital expenditures. We account for them separately. That's $61,700 plus the 1.448 million. So the total expenditures will be $1,510,027.
Gotcha.
Just to keep going, I guess, any other comments on the expenditure side, or all Austin share?
Do you wanna look at the revenue side? Do you have anything other than there'll be a decrease in phone lines, just loss of landlines due to the broadband or the fiber to the home. The equipment rental increase just due to managing Wi-Fi. And interstate access is gonna be declined due to landline decline. And the interlot revenue is going up due to changes in the transport. Everyone good with phone?
If you guys have any changes to the phone, these are not the ones that we have to pass the ordinance on tonight. Our main focus on the phone and everything is trying to get them as close as possible so that we know if we have enough money to do the transfers to reserve if needed to balance our general fund budget. So that's why you're looking at these also tonight, so that we are taking from certain departments in order to balance the general fund as we have for many, many, many years.
So should we move on to the
Yeah, I think we can keep moving unless you guys have questions. We'll keep moving. And
to the general fund?
yes, yeah.
So then if you go to your other packet,
Are we not going over any more enterprise fund?
We're gonna do general fund first.
Okay.
But the only reason we set up is Austin has that.
Austin and
Yes.
Cable TV, maybe we'll talk about that.
I don't have anything with cable, I just wanted to make sure we were.
let me just pull up the table in here.
Forget about cable, did you?
We had a budget for $150.
What's that?
$150 net,
Yeah.
that was close.
So the revenue, 463,000, and the expense, 462,850. So we're hoping to be positive next year in cable. I don't believe there was any, increases or wish lists on the expense side.
Okay.
That one didn't move much. Sorry, that left me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Talk about there.
I'm just gonna throw this out there, would it confuse everybody if we kind of covered the departments for the department heads that are here? And then come back to anything that's not pertaining to the department head?
I'm okay with that.
I just want to be courteous to you guys, the rest of them, and I know Jane's on the Zoom. She was. Well, we just don't follow.
Yeah.
So we still.
I'm sure you can hear us.
Yeah,
So I guess Elaine, you pick between your department heads who you want, which department you want to cover next, but I would be fine with covering them so that these guys can.
should we,
Thank you. Have a great
So
night.
Jeff will probably take the longest. So
We better stay, Jeff.
you'll probably take the longest.
so if you go to your packet that says general fund, that's where we're gonna move to next.
Which one do you wanna go with first then? Or do you wanna get Jane so she can, Jane's got COVID, so.
That's your library.
Jane, can you hear us okay?
She said,
Oh, here.
Supposed to remind you about Barb's salary.
Yep.
Gotcha.
So I was visiting with Jane this afternoon and found that I mistakenly forgot to include Barb on our salary spreadsheet. Barb was under full-time, but we paid her underneath the part-time code. And so I forgot to put her in there. So this sheet that's in the packet now is updated to include Barb's salary. Not only salary, but it also changed the FICA. Jane has a yearly posting for her atrium. And she is going to work on replacing 11 failed windows and paint for buildings and improvements. She did reduce her computer equipment due to the grant, the ARPA grant. Jane, do you have any additions?
I don't believe that I had any additions, no. I think I kept it pretty tight except for the windows.
She said she didn't have any other additions other than the windows.
Had a couple of things.
Move along. You want to go to the street department? So the same packet. The street department.
Street, you said? Or police?
Street.
Oh.
I think too, it's your enterprise, or your general fund, but this one I feel like has that health insurance issue as well, maybe. Annualized for what we've spent year to date, it's gonna be almost 21,000, or budgeting 53,000.
So Jeff has, you can jump in here anytime. Other rentals, mower tractor rental. The street maintenance projects,
We don't have a loader tractor now, is that what you're saying? You want to rent one that we've never had before?
Well, we've got that big 15-foot mower,
Yeah.
and
So just so they're clear what you're doing there.
yeah, that's if it wouldn't have been a dry year, we would probably had to have that big mower going. And this is just now for getting a tractor from John Deere or wherever.
And then if you remember in the past, we used to get them at no charge from John Deere.
Yeah.
And that program's went away, is that right?
The state still gets it, but nobody can climb on that same program. I don't know if counties can do it, but I think the state is the only one that can do it now.
So that's where you've seen that increase, because we've never had to pay that before, so.
Well, I had been there last year at 10.2 and didn't use it. And then we haven't used it this year, so.
What do you mow with that?
What do we mow?
Yeah.
Oh, like on the curb out there, around the lagoons, out of the landfill,
Okay.
and all over.
And why didn't you need it?
Well, we just didn't have the rain. You know, we had 2 tractors going and, you know, both of those guys
Okay.
got it, so.
Probably mowing now more than you were in the middle of summer.
so under street maintenance projects, you had both 70,000 and 100,000 written down in there. Is that more chip sealing?
Yeah, normally we have a $70,000 chip sealing budget.
people felt like we wanted to do some more, you know, I just threw $100,000 out.
Would that get us on that every 3-year rotation that we talked about?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that.
We're hoping that this new stuff is gonna last 5 to 7 years. Is that kind of what they were talking?
Yeah.
So.
We'd have to do some catching up before we can get to that, start skipping years.
Okay.
I just want to make a comment. You're doing a heck of a job on Main Street. A lot of people are saying they appreciate filling in the holes. I know we can't do every single hole, but you're doing a great job.
Well, that's one, we got a chip seal, so we're trying to get that job done, and we'll have to go back to that for many years. We hope.
So street maintenance is really the only increase in your budget other than the employee expenses, correct?
Yeah, I think so.
For the street,
street light supplies, you're completely out of poles and replacements, so.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That is large. So, his expense came in at, $656,185.
You're gonna look at the insurance part of that again?
I'll look at all
That
of them,
looks like,
yeah.
around like 14,000.
So, the mosquito, which is the next page, there's $4,000 budgeted, which is a decrease of $2,000 from last year.
We've gotten a grant over the last, quite a few years for about 2,000, and we have we still have a lot of stuff left over, because we didn't spray a lot this year.
And that keeps from year to year.
Yeah.
So we just figured we're probably not gonna need as much. The grants typically are, if we have a 6,000 budget, it's $2,000. If we have a 4,000 budget, we get 2,000. It's based on earlier population, so. What I already have.
Why do we have to have a separate budget for that? It's not really street, it's not really water, so it has to have its own thing, or, because you're using street department labor, there's no labor in mosquito control, it's just chemicals.
I don't know why.
We've always done it that way.
Well, it doesn't mean that's the right way
Some
to do
cities
it.
track
I'm asking
a
why
lot.
we do that.
I suppose when we added it to there, they just said, let's put it in that budget. I don't know. Elaine, you don't know either, because
I
we've done
don't,
before.
it was here before I,
I don't know.
Is it extra work to have a separate department for mosquito control?
Mm.
It's an extra piece of paper.
See, this is the one that really confused me.
Are you looking to be hired, right?
Tell me again.
No, you wanna run the mosquito department?
No.
Who handles
What would be the salary for department head on mosquito?
Who pays for gas and the wear and tear and tires?
Some guy was street department.
It was really well.
There you go, pretty crap out of it. You do put in
We transfer that to the council, and then you guys can take turns driving on those.
How about next year we throw it under streets?
We spray that out.
I would check, it may be something with the grant program.
yeah.
And if it's already set up, it's probably not.
I appreciate your ability to kill the mosquitoes.
We haven't sprayed any this year.
Take credit.
I mean, it's so low, we put it under the mayor's budget.
Except for 2014, what happened then?
Holy smokes.
We bought a new sprayer, I suppose.
We were what year?
2010 too.
The sprayer we bought.
Yeah, that one year, spraying all the time.
That's that year.
Yeah.
I don't think it was.
Okay,
Next.
so should we move on to the police?
Yeah, you should.
Or do you want to do water? Or do you want to do water so Jeff's done?
Let's go police with, back to sheet,
So we're doing police.
back. to
Sorry, Jeff, I
one.
tried to get you out of there.
Where are we?
Back from the street to sheet.
Pine trees.
Alright.
Back in the general fund packet.
Oldies.
So So. Mike increased the personal safety equipment, for ammunition. Training course fees for taser recertification. And machinery and auto is a new patrol car. And so his budget came in at $496,675.
So for 37 grand, what do we get, a car or an SUV or?
I haven't seen the numbers yet, but based off the last year's number, the truck was the cheapest way to go. I think it was right at about 27 grand. So I'm hoping it doesn't go up too drastic on us. Because we still got to outfit the inside of it too, so.
Another SUV, you mean?
No, the Dodge Ram truck.
Oh.
They were the cheapest one on the state bid last year, but I tried to call in and order one a long time ago and they laughed at me. They said, we can't get you. They said, try again in September.
2023 now.
Right. We driving Jeff's mosquito truck around. Be careful.
So that was the largest change in
Kill two
Mike's.
bugs with one stone.
Gotcha.
That's pathetic.
That's bad.
I'll be here all night.
Okay. So we want to move back to the enterprise packet.
What are we doing?
Moving to water.
Yeah, the liquor store.
So that's the packet that shows the liquor store.
Report page. Yeah.
Third bit.
There we go.
So the expenses on the water,
Yeah. $100,000 increase.
so part of it is, Lewis and Clark Rural Water Expansion Commitment Agreement. Do you recall a few meetings back, you all voted for $28,300 commitment agreement? And then also payment 1 of 4 of the Lewis and Clark Rural Water True Up, which is $28,750. Jeff is asking to get a computer for the SCADA system.
Are those listed somewhere, specifically under capital somewhere, or are they buried in these other expenses? The Lewis and Clark stuff.
So that
It's under the Lewis and Clark,
is added capacity.
yeah, and I think you got a point on there, don't you?
Yep.
So. And we've also put in 17,200 towards reserves for maintenance of the water tower.
Okay.
500,000 will be coming quicker than we think. Paint it again.
Oh, so that have to be done.
Well, they say every 15 to 20 years. I think we got about 25 years out of the last one, so.
7. Yeah, 25, we're 2 over.
We don't have a whole lot, we don't have hardly anything in reserve for the water right now because we used it all day for painting of the water tower last time.
There's no reserves.
So we're not showing a profit in the water this time around, but,
Well, actually, we're showing a $24,000 budgeted loss.
yeah.
Jeff, on this, I'm gonna ask a question for 2021. We have water mains and hydrants, and we total budgeted about 30,000. We just haven't spent it yet. Will we be spending it by the end of the year?
We keep putting that in there, that would be to, make a loop from, west North Maple from 3rd to 4th. And that, going down on West North Maple, just tie that one block in.
Oh,
We just haven't done
so we're probably not gonna use it this year.
it, probably not.
So that'll roll over to blind cash. So then we'll have enough to cover the deficit because we're not gonna spend it this year.
What was that for?
The water main is budgeted at 20,000 for 2021. And we're not gonna use that.
Cool. Okay.
So if we're having a deficit, we need to talk about rates at some point on that. What would it be the rates to just even out that budget? What would we have to do?
You know, if we're not gonna do the one improvement, Troy, the $20,000 this year, we're rolling it till next year. So as long as we have the revenue come in, that basically would increase the cash value in our checking account by another 20,000. So that should account for most of the difference there. Otherwise, we could, if we're doing it this year, we could probably take $20,000 out.
It's budgeted for next year too,
It is.
so.
So we're rolling whatever we didn't spend. The revenue's still there, it's just that we didn't spend it this year.
It's gonna stay in our
So
cash.
if we have
Right,
20,000.
I understand, so, it's just, there's always.
Sometimes you just don't know what's gonna happen, and we try to budget the best we can, but if we don't have time to do it, it doesn't get done, and it's a little bit different than what we do in our general fund accounts.
Do we expect, I mean, our water fees are up quite a bit this year. Do we expect that to continue next year? I'm just wondering if we could increase those commercial and residential water fees up a little bit to cover that deficit.
We've always been pretty conservative, I think, because we could have it go the other way too. If we have a wet year, we won't be nearly where we're at this year. We've had that happen before, so.
Be another dry year.
Yeah. Dry year is good for water, not good for the consumer, but good for us.
And is there plans in the future to update the meters at the homes to
We're-
them?
We're in the process of that and a long ways.
Yeah.
I mean, how far do you think we are from going to a remote read system? How many more meters do you have to change out?
Kathy thought that Keith had said less than 200 meters left to go.
So, I mean, maybe that's something we start planning for. Keith's gonna retire here shortly, so, if we can get that moved forward next, maybe next year, not next year, but the year after budget. Start planning for that. It'll be probably in that $300,000 to $500,000 area to kind of completely get the program up and running. Because even though we have the meters, there's still some things we have to do to every meter in order to be able to read them the way we want to. And it's not free. Once you get the meters in place, you still have to pay someone for the fee to read them. So it doesn't go away, but it helps.
But then they'd be instantaneous and up to date every month, right?
Yeah, you can read them right here at the city hall.
Every 12 hours, I think, like Sioux Falls reads. How does that work? So
Well,
like transmitter and receivers around town that pick up on those?
Well, one of the things, well, yeah, they can do like electric does, or you put there's a $100 box that goes over the button that Keith reads with that gun on the house now, and drive by and it picks up the signal with cell phone. I don't know what that stuff all costs, but every time you tap into that, there's a battery in every meter. It's supposed to be about a 20-year battery. If we're going by and tapping it once a month with that gun, and then all of a sudden we start hitting it 4 times a day, I don't know how much life it'll take out of the battery. I haven't heard, nobody has really answered that for me yet, I guess.
That's one option, right, Jeff? Now, you might have another option.
I think there's a way out there where our meters can be, they can create a hop, so the water meter would talk to the electric meter, and then if you go to the collector points that we use, some of the same company that we use to read the electric meters would read the water as well.
And that would not require drive-by at all.
No, and then you just end up with one bill from Util Smart, month instead of a setup fee with everybody. I mean, there should have setup fees, to put the water on there. Right now, we only read once a day. And if you wanted to read multiple times a day, you pay for those additional reads.
So this is all in process and will be rolling out over the next year.
That's what they've been trying to do to get those meters switched out, because we knew we didn't have a lot of extra cash on hand with a water tower coming up.
Okay.
So, and we had just increased our water rates several times for, second, fifth, 11th, or 10th, second, fifth, 11th Street, and the loop for the Lewis and Clark down there. We did that one year, and then we had to do the Highway 46 project because they were doing that, so we increased our water rates quite a bit over that period, and our water rates were quite a bit on the higher end of most of the communities, so we were trying to keep them where they're at. We haven't moved their water rates for anything other than those two major projects since I believe 2009. I put some stuff in there every time we've increased our rates, so you can kind of have a history of when we did it and all that kind of stuff. So we haven't done a whole lot of rate increases on the water side, or the sewer was the last one we did. I'll talk about that later. But
The other nice thing about, like the water, it would being it would read once a day, it would give Kathy a report. So if somebody had a leak, she would find out about it like the next day versus 30 days later.
Right.
the little Gershman that came in here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would have showed up the next day.
Yep.
You can put a variance in there,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it'll kick out.
Like especially if water's running for like, so long.
Like the house that flipped up.
Yeah, that one too.
Good deal.
Moving on to the sewer. So same packet.
Sewer, that's in general fund, that one.
Survey the enterprise.
Enterprise.
Pretty much anything that makes money is in the enterprise.
I'm sorry, just to remind you, we don't, in the enterprise funds too, we can have, if we make a deficit, we don't have to have a positive.
So we are now required quarterly to do a metal test, which is $1,000 a quarter. So that is why the lab testing services went up to $6,000. Sewer manholes went up to $70,000 because you would like to continue rehabbing, correct?
We've been doing 50,000 a year in manholes. We've got, just for instance, we'll say there's 10 every year. There's probably 13 that if we can do 13 this year, then we don't do any manholes. The rest of them are good for quite some time. So then we get done with might as well have them come and do the mobilization. Just do it this year and get those other 3 out of here. I'm not saying it's 3, but we're gonna increase it $20,000 to just get done with it this year. That's what I'd like to do. Am I explaining that good enough?
Do you want to do it next year, right?
Yeah.
We don't have to do it until next year. So.
Only one comment, the one by the park, a lot of people are calling me, said thank you very much, that one that was by the corner there. It was down, you did a great job there, it's real nice. That's how you're gonna do the other ones, right?
Yeah.
To the top,
Mhm.
there's not a bump.
Right. That's what we've been doing.
Good job.
And then there's $15,000 transferred to reserves. Just continue to build up the reserves, same as this year.
What are we budgeting for fixing all the sewer lines that running that hardening stuff inside?
Sewer mains, I had
15,000.
But that's going to most likely be a separate project, kind of like we did with the second, the fifth, the 11th Street project. Because that's not. Just to do that on a small basis would probably cost a lot more, because you're gonna have a lot of mobilization costs. So this is, we're meeting with them tomorrow, I believe. They're gonna present some information, at least preliminary information about where we should start and get some cost estimates, what we wanna do, so we can present to you that we can do this quarter of Beresford, whatever's works first, that we can actually do the relining with, and not have to tear everything up. So we reline, that's what we wanna do, but, we don't have anything budgeted for next year, and then we're gonna finish the manholes, and then we'll come back. And that's what the state's gonna wanna see, is what our plan is for next year. We can say, oh, we're still doing this, but we're also gonna look at doing some major, improvements, but we don't know that yet, so.
Okay.
I mean, but we could, if we decide we wanna move forward with that in the enterprise fund, you have the ability to do that, we just have to go out and find a way to pay for it. I think if you look at your financial statement from July, you're probably gonna see there's not a lot of money in the sewer reserves, so.
We don't have any, grants for the sewers.
We'll apply for, so we're on the state, getting on the state water plan right now to do some of that stuff. So,
Is there any money available, or a little bit, or
for
what?
water, our rates are high enough that we qualify for loan forgiveness, which if there's funds available, we can get up to 50% of it back. So if we have a $100,000 project, we're responsible for 500,000, and the state would give us 500,000. Our sewer rates aren't at that level right now, so we may not qualify. If there's money available, so we can still borrow money at like 2 to 2.5%.
Then we just raise our sewer rate.
But we have to be on the state water plan in order to do that, and that's why we have to have Pat Perry doing a lot of the work that they're doing right now, so we can provide that information so that we can actually apply for those funds.
Then we raise the rate though, so we can apply for some grant from the state.
Well, we want to be over $30 on average, yeah, so that would hopefully help, yeah. But we only added $1 to the sewer bill and thought that would take care of us.
So what's the max you can get now on no bids, 100,000, you said?
Yeah, 100,000. And that's about 10 blocks. By the foot. Get 10 blocks for 100,000.
I wanna try to see what we can do, even if it's a little. I mean, didn't the state kinda make a comment on our permit that we're supposed to be working on,
Well, they give us a timeline that we have to be, and I think we're following that.
We're doing the manholes now, that's where we have leaking in manholes that are collapsing, so rather than have those collapse and have to replace the whole manhole, we're able to reline them at a cost of about a third, so we don't tear the whole street up, so.
You're doing a great job, thank you, thank you.
Do you have anything else you want to add?
I don't think so. Nothing else sticks out. The increase rate. Anybody?
So we're showing a small profit of $2,700 and $15,000 goes in reserves, so. Water and sewer have never been big money makers, we try to break even and keep things moving along.
Okay, so if we move on to the electric, so it's the same packet. And go back a few pages. So, expenditures budgeted is $3,890,615, and revenue $3,982,515. Mike increased his tires and batteries just due to the price of tires. There's a long lead time on meters and a price increase. Underground hardware,
Availability, and
yeah.
everybody just, can't get it, and the price is going up.
I got a question, Elaine. Under the health insurance line.
Yeah, I have to look at them.
We budgeted 85, year to date 27, budget 93.
I have to look at all of them.
Okay. But looking at our past history, 51 last year, 31 and 19, 40 and 18.
Jay Norquist is still on the policy also, just for your guys' information.
How long do they stay on after
He's on
retirement?
until April this year, of 22, I mean.
I got a question. Asked this, my Jay Norquist. He's on insurance for the electrical. Because then you got, a situation coming up with his heart, so is that before the
I
insurance?
don't think we should be talking about that, Art.
Oh, I just wondering.
That's something you should wonder about, Art.
Alright, I was just asking.
Okay.
We did increase the electric, just due to an addition at the east substation. Land, we added $25,000 to purchase the vacant lot adjacent to the electric shop at 507 North 4th Street.
Mike, why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yes.
What the purpose and all that kind of stuff.
You know, it's been for sale for what, a year? It's too small for anybody to put anything on. I just thought if they had the chance to buy land next to city property, we could buy it. I mean, I don't have plans to do anything on it, but versus something going in there that you don't want in there,
Is that to the north of the office
just to the south.
or south?
They tore that house down.
Yeah.
And then I think he tried to get a variance to put some structure in there, and some of the neighbors said no. So,
I mean, we don't really have a purpose for it, so I don't know that, why would
we
we
don't
want to spend the money, I
just
guess.
as long as, you know,
There was a house there, it's zoned residential, right?
I believe so. What was it, Jerry, 50 feet wide?
Yeah, it's a lot of records, so they can put a house in there, as long as they meet the setback requirements, which is 7 foot on each side, so if they had a 36-foot wide house, they could still put a house in there because it is zoned for that. And we made an exception for existing lots like that. To take out a bunch of those old houses tore down.
Because we I suppose we have of that grass area.
What's that?
I suppose we have what, 20 feet?
I don't know.
Right on there.
I don't know.
Is it for sale?
Okay. It's been for sale for quite a while.
That's when they try to put a shop in or something.
If you want to put a long shed or something.
They tried to get it rezoned so they can put a middle building on there. And the neighbors wanted nothing to do with that, so.
I think it can, I'm just kind of with Troy Doden, if we don't have a plan for it, I don't know that we should take it off of the tax rolls.
No, that's fine.
You know, keep the real estate part.
You know, pretty good. They take care, maintain it pretty good.
Yeah.
So,
Cause it sits up quite a bit too.
it's up higher, yeah.
We could just transfer the extra to the reserves too, pretty much. If we don't, I mean, we can just put it in reserves. So I think we maybe just move that down to increase your reserve balance by another 25,000.
Sure.
You know, we really hit that hard the last couple of years.
Yeah.
We're trying to rebuild that, and that's what you're gonna see down below.
So under, machinery and auto, we had something budgeted for this year that we haven't spent anything. What was the budget purpose last year? And I see there's something for this year too, or for 2022.
I thought it was removed for 2021.
Well, it's so 60 grand on here. So it must be how we approved it. I don't remember last year.
We take it out of there, like.
Anything specific.
I can look.
Pretty sure it was taken out of there.
I believe it was,
Is that-
was taken
Is
out.
that for a 1-ton dump or something?
Yeah.
So what do you got budgeted for, in your proposed budget for 2022 at 65?
1-ton dump truck.
Dodge still running?
Old Green's getting tired,
Yeah.
but, yeah, I was looking to replace that.
Any other departments have a dump truck? I mean, you don't use yours during the winter, do you?
We use it every day.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we go for instead of a truck with a utility body on it, because we use that for everything. And I figured while this one's still moving,
we could do probably some decent money out of it, so. And I looked for used and I came up with that one that I don't know if it's included in the packet, but they had that one in Vermillion that just sold last week. That was a pretty good deal, and then I called Boyer and Sioux Falls, and they just put together just a plain gasser, you know, the diesel added another 10,000, so we didn't need that, but so I think it was right at 65, the whole package deal.
So you need a truck or dump box?
Both. You know, the dump box on the truck.
Would it be?
The only reason we get in the ditches, you know, it's easier to drive the truck in there, four-wheel drive truck, than dump a wagon.
That's what I'm wondering if like a dump box trailer would be.
Not handy for most instances for us.
Not what you would be looking for.
No. So it's been a really handy, I mean, like I said, we use it every day. We're putting rock, backbone on transformers, poles, everything, you know. But then you take a pickup with a dump trailer, you know, getting into some of them type spots in the alleys and things like that. That's why I don't want an extended cab. I want it as short as possible. So keep short wheelbase and a smaller dump body. Pretty much just like what it is now. But this one would go to, instead of a 1 ton, it'd go to a 450. And a little more weight and full bore trailer and some of the equipment trailers.
And what year is the one you got now?
2001.
What do you think it's worth?
Maybe on that purple wave, maybe 5,000.
What did we pay for it, do you remember? About that?
For my time.
About what, about 65?
I was thinking it was like 7,500. I think it was 3,000 for the surplus.
Yeah, it was.
That was before they started jacking their prices up.
Yeah,
to
and
the
that's-
retail price.
That's not a deal anymore either, surplus.
No, you can't. I think they buy the stuff on the open market and then turn around and sell some of that stuff. Seems like it's not, purple wave is probably the better place.
If we approved that, we would have all winter to keep our eye on a decent used one, right? We don't have to spend the new money if we can find a good one,
Don't have to.
a 5 or 10-year-old one that's better shape than the 20-year-old one.
Cause like that one in Vermillion, that was, I checked it out and he went and checked it. It was pretty nice for the money and he put that price on before vehicle prices went up. And when vehicle prices went up, he never raised that price. I was hoping to hang in there.
Was that 40?
Yeah.
39,000. And that came with a snowplow as well, all set up, ready to go.
Pretty low miles too, it seemed like.
It was low.
How old of a truck was that?
2016.
Well,
So, I mean, but that was, like I said, that price was set before vehicle prices went through the roof.
You don't put a lot of miles on it, it's just that you use it every day to
Yeah,
pull something.
I mean,
Or
it's, yeah.
what do you have for other vehicles? You got your pickup?
We got that pickup with the utility box on it,
And it's just a big truck,
and then
right?
the big trucks. So for 4 guys, you know, you send somebody to Sioux Falls or something, and they're gonna roll a big truck to Sioux Falls.
So you gotta either take your pickup or the dump box.
Yeah.
And if we,
Even if we look at getting a F-250 or F-350 or whatever, just to have a truck, I mean, you're still looking at it's gonna be 50 grand.
Yeah,
probably.
so this was cabin chassis and a dump body. And that was all installed, price put together.
so when you guys run for parts, you take the pickup with the utility box on it, or you take the Equinox, or what do you guys, the city vehicle, or what do you
We'll
take?
take one of our department pickups, you know, it's one's hooked to a piece of equipment and you send a runner for something, or, you know, we go to Sioux Falls to get a roll of cable, you know, or like, we fill them back, like that crushed rock and you name it, all in dirt away, and we dig a hole for like a set of transformer or something. We put all the dirt right in there and take that to the dumper, up to the 5 piece. You know, like I said, it gets used every day.
can use the mosquito truck?
Is that the SDS?
But it can barely pull the boring machine up the hill from our shop anymore. It's just, once you put a load on it, there's not much there. Or a whole load of rock in the back.
20-year-old truck. So just to be clear, there wasn't, I don't think there was 60 in there.
No, it was taken, I had it in for last year, and got taken on it.
We appreciate keeping overtime down, that's good to see.
I mean, I think we can keep it in there long until later. I mean, you guys are gonna probably approve it if we go buy one anyhow.
Yeah, we're gonna have to approve it anyways.
So, I mean, it's not, he's not gonna go out and buy one. I mean, if it's in there, you guys say no, we just don't spend the money.
Yeah, I think everyone would agree right now, it's not probably to go buy one, but maybe it'll break and go.
Well, you know, but I mean.
No, I mean, the price.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
So then under new construction, up to $35,000 just because material costs increase and, the possible new campground.
Right.
And, is there anything else? Okay. Transfer to reserves, $500,000, and transfers out $250,000. So we move that land 25 to the transfer to reserves and increase that to 255.
So how much is in the reserve zone?
Budgeted was 500,000, but we'll take that land,
Right.
budget of 25, and add it to the transfer to reserves.
Okay. Oh, I see what you're saying.
We're increasing the cash on hand by 91,000 also.
That's even after all these new loan payments, the bond payments. So.
You know, and we talked about electric sales too, and it's so hard with this data center, you know, the triple his usage in October. Because we set the new service a couple weeks ago, and he's waiting for his electrician to finish. And I think all of his machines come in October.
We've been pretty conservative, we didn't budget anything for that at all, so whatever we make on that will just be extra revenue. On the addition anyhow, so he doubles the amount of stuff.
What goes into this electric other sales? 161,000 in 2020 and 146,000 already this year, but we're only budgeting $5,000. I'm on the revenue, sorry.
So Missouri River Energy gave a rebate this year for that,
So there was one,
overcharged.
We-
That
yeah.
settlement that they,
and then there was a lawsuit that they
yes,
settled also.
These
There
are
was,
at-
oh, I guess that check came last year, December.
We got one in 2020.
yeah, so this one would have been just the,
One-time deal.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure which one, yeah, 2020 would have been the
Yeah,
other one. But underneath the revenue, we did not take into effect the bid at all, because we don't have enough data to go by.
well, and if
Yeah,
he was
we
just
don't
off on
know.
leave next month
So we
too.
didn't change anything there.
Right.
Where should we go from here?
I guess we'll done.
No, solid waste.
Hope that's out.
How about next meeting?
Yeah, we're good?
Good job.
All right.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
We're gonna do that motion.
Yeah. We're gonna do the signs tonight.
Let's go on to the, what do you want to talk about that? Are you looking?
I can.
Oh, okay. It'll be another 2.5 hours if you want to stick around.
Excuse me?
We can move through a lot faster if you guys want, so. I think we need to go back to the general fund, that's where we actually have to have the first reading on tonight, so. We'll just work our way from, I think we'll start with the revenue first. I think that's the first page that we have there, so we'll work for that one first.
No, called.
All right. See you guys.
See you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the very first page, the general property taxes, we are estimating $750,000.
Can you tell them why the difference between 775 and 750 from 2021 to 2022?
So I received a call from Jackie at Union County, and she had said that we did our formula incorrectly last year. And so then we had the special, I don't know if you recall, the special council meeting to change it. And then she called me back and she said, my bad, I told you wrong. So that is why it was budgeted at $775,000 last year.
We already had a budget
We already-
approved, sent all the paperwork,
Yes.
and I told her she kept every note that she had from the gal. I said,
Yeah,
so, you know, we were thinking they had extra growth that we had not accounted for, or something like that. And, you know, Lincoln County told us that at one time, and we were able to pick up about $30,000 more uncollected property tax over a 3-year period. So we budgeted that one year, but this particular year, this is Union County telling us something. We went with what they told us to put in there, and then they came back, and we're not gonna hit that number this year, so.
so that's why it's less. And then they had always asked us to actually estimate higher, so then we added, from our formula, we added about 10,000. Taxes. City sales tax percent, the sales tax this year is looking very good. And we're hoping next year will be just as good. Building permits, we're hoping after this year's increases, maybe there'll be a little bit more construction next year. If you go down to the COVID CARES Recovery Fund, we are expected to get half of the grant in 2022. So then that would be the $181,000, and then there's a $2,000 mosquito grant that's gonna be in there.
We have not got anything this year, have we? No. We're just filling out paperwork out. They finally opened the portal so we could actually apply for it. So, we have plenty of uses for that. We just have to show that it was used for police protection or something like that. And obviously, we have a police force, so we will spend $495,000, I think, is what our budget for next year. So we should be able to come up with an $183,000 or $181,000 expenses there.
The swimming pool fees, we put in the same as last year. This year we came in at, we're sitting right now at $35,278. So I think next year we could easily do $36,500. The rental revenue is off of the American Tower and the land rent and the telephone office switch. The malt beverage 2% and the liquor 10% tax revenue is looking really good this year. That has been ear tagged for the fire department.
So when we look at the fire department's budget, you'll see that going to reserves. 30,000 for reserves.
And the 550,000 transfers in is going to be 250,000 from the electric, 250,000 from telephone, and 50,000 from solid waste. So the total is $2,388,651. If you go to the next page, the council budget. There's really no change there at all.
Still, we put 30,000 in contingency funds again, so.
The mayor's budget, Really no changes.
Congratulations, Nathan, on bringing it down about $400.
Way to go.
So we'll let you try and work on that one.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate your time, man. Thanks, David.
I think he needs to cut his budget a little more.
City administrator, there really was not any increases other than salaries, health insurance. Gary does not have anything on his wish list.
No, I took myself out of the ICMA, that's $1,000 a month, but I don't think I get anything out of joining, so I took myself out of there a couple of years now, so. Well, actually, that's a year, $1,000 a year, you know, based on your wages. Seems like it's, yeah.
Get yourself a new chair, will ya?
He could
I'm
be
pretty
here.
tired of that stuff.
What? What'd you say?
I like to keep those chairs as long as I possibly can.
I was working on a second computer screen.
Can't teach you a dog new tricks.
No.
Elaine adjusted just fine to a second screen.
It's nice.
You can see
So,
her bouncy ball chair, Jerry.
the
I have one you
We
can
got
try.
one upstairs somewhere, I think.
he'll be on the floor. So the finance office, there really isn't much difference there.
$13,000 difference, almost 10%.
Well, I have the health insurance wrong.
Too
That
high.
didn't carry
Yeah.
correctly. The percentage must not carry correctly.
No.
Some of them are all right, some just took way off.
Yeah. What?
In
City
case you're voting.
attorney, we did not change at all.
50%.
Well, let's see, now we're-
Government building, mainly just price of insurance increase. There's no, improvements to the building that are planned. We did police, so if we move, and we did street. This, we did.
We didn't fire, we haven't fired yet.
Oh, sorry, fire.
I think the only thing Carson wanted to do there was just to replace the carpet in the meeting room with, some vinyl flooring.
We received 2 quotes with 2 different materials. One quote came in at $21,000 and the other one came in at $15,500, so we did an average of the 2 and threw in 18. Part of the quote was if the removal was done themselves of the existing product.
So it's original carpet in there.
Yeah.
It is 20 years old.
Mhm.
Now it's kind of, it'll be 19 years old.
Is it?
Or the
All
next
the
year.
syrup from the pancakes.
What's that?
And then if you go down to the transfer to reserve from the fire, $30,000 is to pay back South Dakota Fit, which is payment number 6 for the ladder truck, and then $30 from estimated from the 10% to 2%.
Is that the last payment on that truck? Or is there one more yet?
That should be it.
Did you put on your
I
note?
thought I did
I thought you
too.
did. I thought you said we had one more.
It
Give
is.
another 12,500. If it's 6, it's 6, it's 180. We borrowed 192.5, so we have 12,500 left to pay. We could just go wild this year and pay it too.
Well, why don't we just finish it off, right?
Do this as well. Just add a little bit extra. We'll have a little extra coming in from the.
So why don't we just,
We're gonna-
do 10%, just take it, pay it off. Yep. Instead of transferring it to reserve.
Well, that's where it came out of.
Yeah.
We took it out of reserve to buy the
Same
truck, right?
Just pay it off.
We'll go with 72.5. We'll just have to adjust the card first. Big deal.
Oh,
Card was so happy.
Mhm.
Assuming you need more.
So what are we doing with the truck?
what's it gonna cost to pay off the truck?
We would tell them that's like
72.
Maybe
72.5.
42,000.
Yes.
42.5.
So we, how much do we save in interest by paying it off?
Well, none, we borrowed it from ourselves.
Oh,
It came out of the
Just taking it out,
reserve,
Bill, that's all.
came out of reserve fund.
Okay, I'll go.
So if you continue on to the Parks Department, underneath machinery and auto, he has $10,000 for a half sweep. Half sweep all?
What do you call
Half sweep all?
Is that the ball sweeper?
I wonder if I forgot the B. Let me look. He gave me the brochure.
I think we paid off all of the loan we had for the 5-year loan we had for all the new equipment we bought. So we got some other equipment. I think was he adding or replacing? Do you remember?
No, it's sweep all. I think he's adding it.
What's it look like?
What's this for maintenance of?
Half of it's coming out of the park and half's coming out of the golf course.
I mean, what do they use it for?
Getting the greens off or something.
Sweeping up the
Brush.
golf ball.
One of those vacuum trailers that collects.
Just-
Those mold.
No, it's it.
Well, no, is there a
Sweep
Does the
up
golf
the
course have a-
detach.
Oh. ball picker also?
Yes.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was the other thing we did there.
In the golf course.
Yeah.
That machine that picks the ball up.
Well, that wasn't, we want some different one now.
Mm-hmm. Or no, this is the greens roller.
Yeah, okay.
We've been demoing one. Didn't go work.
Where are they going working now?
I think he got one, he's demoing.
Oh, that's why.
He's been rolling it.
That's why
A
you're.
month or so, that's why they're.
So what's the sweep all
That's
for?
what the-
I guess.
Just look at that.
I thought
Is it
people would be,
detached?
they have to go back, a lot of people get.
Oh, that's
It's just like a place.
So you're gonna be a vacuum cleaner.
Take all the rubber out, you can't do that.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna move. The 102,000 for the lights, is that for just the main field or was that considering every, all fields, you know?
That was just the baseball field lights.
Just the main field then?
The light bulbs are discontinued, we can't get bulbs for our picture.
Right,
Right.
you're gonna use
I thought-
as bills for the.
Right, I thought we were going to
See,
talk about what we were gonna do with the lights when we talked about the new, if we were gonna do a new baseball north complex. Cause then we would take all those lights and be able to supplement them up to those lights. Cause the whole problem is not being able to get those bulbs. But he said if we put new lights there, then we can take those bulbs and use them out there, but if we're gonna get if we're looking at doing a whole new ball field, why would we spend 70,000 on lights when we're just gonna have 3 fields that we gotta get rid of lights for?
I'm not following you. We can't get bulbs for the lights of the other field anymore.
At any of the fields.
They're the same bulbs.
What's that?
They're the same bulbs
Same bulb.
right now.
But if we replace the lights at the big field, then he could use those out at the north field. But if we're talking about replacing the whole thing,
Right.
then we could take those down and use them at that field
For another few years.
for another few years.
Well,
But eventually we're gonna have to get new ones at the main field anyway.
Eventually.
And this new complex isn't happening next year. It's gonna take some time. And I have heard complaints about the ball field and how the lights are starting to get from, I see it. Y'all said it so much, so.
And then underneath operating supplies, he lost his fuel tank this year, and so $1,500 for half the cost of the new fuel tank.
you lost it.
It started leaking.
Oh.
He can no longer use it.
What?
Fuel tank,
It didn't go missing. It
no,
just-
It's still there.
it's still there, it's just leaking.
Are there any maintenance costs with the new turf we just put in?
He has ball field maintenance, Part of the baseball field lights, because he had 10,000 last year and now he has 102.
Okay, so that's just for the lights.
I thought the lights came in at like 90 something.
Yeah, it was right in there. It's cheap, isn't it?
95,000, so the lights came in at.
That's like, it's just like fixtures.
That's just like, the poles, the poles wrong, you know. Wasn't that what it was? The school was like a lot of money today. Right.
So there's 7,000 in other maintenance costs. That'd be all the fields then?
Yeah.
So 7,000 in other additional costs for all the current baseball.
The Grace B. Nelson Field and the basement. Swimming pool? Okay. Wages really, killed this year's budget in the swimming pool.
Say what?
The wage increase. We had, budgeted 40,000 and we're at 48,000. There shouldn't be much left to, unless you can bring someone in to, do some cleaning, but.
Why would we budget 68 then? It's a $20,000. It's like a 40% increase.
Greg's salary doesn't go in there, right?
What's that?
Greg's doesn't
No.
go in there.
Not out of the pool, no. We can change that.
Why, this is our reason for the big jump?
No,
Okay. I would leave a little cushion in case the pool's open longer next year or something.
let's hope.
Gotta find some lifeguards.
So then, swimming pool maintenance, he added for paint and sandblast, and he would like to buy a new pit sump pump. The chemicals stayed the same, and then he was adding 10,000 to reserves for future paint, pool paint and sandblasting. So if we move on to the next one, which is the subsidies. This is the requested dollar amounts. Senior Citizen Program, 3,000. Community Bus Service, 5,000. Bright Beginnings Daycare, 5,000, which they increased by $1,000 from last year. Community Education, 30,000, which is an increase of 2,500 from last year. Beresford Baseball Association, 10,000. City Fireworks Display, 3,500. Koi, 2,500. The Cemetery Association, 1,700, which is an increase of $200 from last year for this 2021. Women entrepreneurs are not requesting any funds for next year, but they would like to be considered in 2023. Faith in Action is requesting the same 5,500. Beresford Community Covered, the same 2,500. So the total is 72,200.
Are those included in what you sent us? The 53,000?
Yeah, I didn't change anything.
So the 72,000 you have in there?
Yep.
Com Ed has requested 30,000. We reduced them last year, so we just keep asking for 30.
So, when I think of community subsidies, I think of nonprofits. Bright Beginnings Daycare, it's privately owned.
Technically a nonprofit.
It is. is it the only remaining not in-home daycare left in town? Is the one at Methodist closed?
Anybody opposed with increasing the cap from 70 to 72?
I think, you know, last year.
Or do we want to debate it for half hour?
No.
They're gonna ask for 2,200 more next year.
We can put a cap on next year.
Cemetery fund. $100 increase, just to increase and try to get more.
Did they want it to low?
Mold,
Yeah.
molding
I
expenses.
talked to Savvy, he said that it's just, the call goes just for the moment, just some minimal maintenance.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just to scratch by.
I'm fine with the 72 too.
okay. Get the library and planning and zoning.
Just basically wage increase or
Yeah,
salary.
the point of work
Yeah.
salaries.
Cool, done with that.
Need a motion?
Can we make the motion with the proposed changes?
It's gonna be a first reading.
Oh,
So we'll make the changes they have.
And then
They won't be
check
changing
that
then,
health
'cause that's-
insurance
Have a first reading
with the,
with the changes that we
Yeah.
got. So we'll look at the first reading.
So we'll make a motion to consider the first reading with that change.
Don't need a motion.
Oh, we don't need a motion.
no, wait, no.
I was trying to move that along.
Alright, we good?
Yep.
Okay.
Next item, part-time hire for the liquor store.
Jerry, do you have that? The
Oh, I'm
part-time
sorry.
hire for the liquor store?
You know, the enterprise stuff, or you're not gonna do the rest of these.
I think our biggest thing is just we get as long as we have enough of the telephone, the electric, and the solid waste funds, those are the only ones we're coming from. We can talk about the other ones at a later time. We'll have better information on all of them, especially the golf course. You can look at both.
I know I reviewed everything, and I don't have any questions other than health insurance on those, so.
Yeah.
I guess that my fellow council members do. You've all reviewed it, right, for good with those enterprise funds?
These? I slept with them.
Just, wow.
Osmosis, right? Hope you can retain good information.
Part-time hire.
Okay, good? Part-time hire.
We've got an application from Heather Moody for a bartender at $9.45 an hour. And we did some checking, and we have the okay from Mike Shirk, and we can go ahead and hire her, so.
Shall I make a motion for part-time hire for the fish store is to read second state?
Second.
Motion by Schott and seconded by Heather Moody.
Heather Moody, yeah. MOODY.
The rate of $9.45 an hour. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all fair side?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Step pay increase for Kathy Stewart.
Kathy does an excellent job. Very dependable. All the time.
Shall I make a motion step pay increase for Kathy?
Should we hear the amount
For a
first?
great job. For the amount of,
$20.17 an hour,
From what to what?
1966 to 2017.
with Jerry's recommendation. That's $20.17.
Second.
Motion by Schott and seconded to approve the step pay increase for Kathy Stussy at a rate of $20.17 per hour. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all fair side?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Letter from the safety benefits.
Received a really nice letter from, Matt Peterson, who did our safety loss control survey, and said that at this time he did not have any recommendations, and I thought it was a really nice letter. I think all the departments are very aware of safety concerns and address them as needed, and so I wanted to share the letter with all of you.
Dylan's done a good job on that safety committee together and making sure. And normally we have, a couple things in every department. We didn't have anything at all this year, so.
Yeah, he actually stopped back in that afternoon and said how impressed he was with all of the departments and how easily everyone was willing to help with the survey, and
Is that all our insurance?
it helps me.
It helps a whole
Is it a
lot.
lot?
Mhm.
I just got one question. Did you mention you had a letter from the IBEW?
We do, that's for the, after all,
Sorry.
So, if you're ready to move on to that, we've got our notice from the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. They're ready to start negotiating with our negotiating team again, and they've got just a couple of things on here. So basically, it's the same thing as always, the wages and any other proposals that either side had, and they want to extend the MOU. How do you remember that? Understanding from addressing the hours of work in the work week. So we addressed that. We said we consider that again at the next meeting. So that the committee will get together once Tom gets back from Scottsdale.
Committee is me and Will and, is it Mike?
I don't even remember.
You do negotiating committee. Somebody got it with them. There you
I
go.
do think it might be you.
It might be me, but it's football season, so it's hard for me to go to those.
Yeah, it's Mike,
Thanks a lot.
Will, and Dota.
Can we just have a committee meeting with Jerry? Sometime before the next council meeting? It could be in the evening.
They can come in before the meeting too.
Well, it's gonna be hard for Mike to get here.
Unless
Yeah.
on Mondays, you might not even be around.
Yeah, I might not make any more committee or council meetings around that.
Right.
But I mean, later in the evenings, like Wednesday night or something. Works for me.
Wednesdays work for me. They work for you.
Me too.
Yeah.
Teresa?
No.
I'm sorry.
I don't have.
Hey, I don't want to. So, next Wednesday?
And what are we discussing?
I think we just need to get together and review what we discussed last year with the union, and we need to come back. And then I think we should have executive session at the next council meeting and talk about union contract, and just get some guidance from the entire council when we go into union negotiation meetings with the actual union reps.
Are we talking like 7 o'clock or so?
Sure.
Does that work, Jerry?
Sure.
Next Wednesday?
Meet here?
Just meet on here, sure.
Talk to my guy, he's in.
So,
We good?
labor committee.
Do you want to talk about the signs behind me? So today I went down and picked up we are officially a Purple Heart City, and I'm gonna work with Jeff Heidebright and the state to get these posted throughout the city. They asked that the green sign be posted off of the state highway. There's 4 of those, and hopefully have it done before Veterans Day.
Jeff will have to work with the state on that one, I'm sure.
Yeah, we can't put signs up on the highway. Let's work with the state.
Then what about the parking signs? How many of those we got for town?
So there's 2 each of those, and those we can put wherever we want.
So it's 4.
Yep.
That's good. They look really nice.
So-
Yes, that'd be good. Alrighty.
I don't know if there's really a spot to post one at Fiesta. On the side of their building, outside of the deli.
That's private property.
Oh, that's Brian, isn't it?
Yep, that's Brian.
And they're actually gonna be redoing all the parking lots in the next year, so.
We were thinking anywhere from the post office, city hall, library, the school,
Senior center.
senior citizen.
Well, that first part, that's about the golf course, right?
Oh, I like it.
Good one.
I like it.
I say stick with the green.
Liquor stores and
Well, liquor store was brought up. Then we kind of like, no.
Wherever it's
Wherever,
most traffic, I
Okay.
don't think there's
we want a lot of people to see it.
good visibility.
Right.
We have a business owner that's a veteran, maybe?
Yeah.
There you go. They love it.
True.
Can we get more signs?
I can check.
What if we ask the
Are you
school
thinking
about
the veterans parking only?
Either or, just,
Okay,
it's
sure.
just something that we can.
Ask the school to put one in there.
I'll ask. I have his email address. I can send a message to him tomorrow.
Where do they meet at?
How many more are you thinking?
How many more down the person parking spot?
It'd be cool to have like four, man.
Park there every day.
Nathan, yeah, 4.
I'm just curious, how
Okay, we
If
can
you
just
can.
ask and then see what we can get.
come back and see what, is there a limit or?
That's just everybody in Union County.
If so, what do they cost or how?
Okay. We'll take it out of Jeff's budget.
There goes Jerry's chair. We have a travel request.
Who moved to pay the travel request?
Golden second.
Motion by Bill and second to approve the SDML conference. Any further discussion?
If anyone would like to go, please let me know by the next meeting.
All fair side?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Is there a motion to pay the bills?
Who moved to pay the bill?
Golden second.
Motion by Bill and second to authorize payment of the bills. All fair side?
Aye.
Opposed? No further business for the council meeting adjourned.
I'm taking one budget.
Yeah,
That'll be awesome.
Is that all?
It's a